The crack of bone wasn't the worst part. It was the silence that followed. My brother stood over me, chest heaving, fists trembling, not from guilt, but from fear of what he'd done to his future. I could barely breathe. My ribs screamed every time I moved. Mom rushed in, eyes wide, not with horror, but calculation. "Stay quiet," she whispered, kneeling beside me. "He has a future, sweetheart. Don't ruin it." That sentence hurt more than the broken ribs. I nodded because that's what I'd been trained to do, to protect him, to protect the family image. The golden boy couldn't have a record. The disappointment, me, was the one who needed to endure, stay quiet, disappear. So I did, for a while. I used to think my brother loved me. When we were kids, he'd protect me from the neighborhood bullies, carry me on his back after school, promise that he'd always have my back. I didn't realize that phrase could twist into something else. When he turned 17, something shifted. He grew into Dad's reflection, cocky, entitled, cruel in small, almost invisible ways. A shove on the stairs that felt like an accident, a punch in the arm that got out of hand. By the time I realized it wasn't play anymore, the bruises were too deep to explain away. Mom knew. She always knew. But she looked at him like he hung the stars, and looked at me like I was the shadow blocking her view. That night, after he broke my ribs, I couldn't sleep. Every breath reminded me of what silence costs. Mom's words echoed, "Don't ruin his future." But I started thinking, what about mine? The next morning, I told her I needed to see a doctor. She hesitated but finally agreed, warning me not to make a scene. I promised I wouldn't. I meant it at the time. At the clinic, I sat in the sterile light while the doctor pressed against my side. I flinched. She looked at me, really looked, and said quietly, "You're safe now." Then she picked up the phone. That single gesture shattered everything. Mom's narrative, my silence, his safety. It all cracked like glass under pressure. The investigation started immediately. They called it domestic violence. Mom called it an exaggeration. My brother called me a liar. But the X-rays didn't lie. Neither did the photographs of old bruises. The police came. They questioned me. I told the truth, every detail I'd swallowed for years. My brother was arrested. For once, he didn't look invincible. Mom's screams echoed through the house as they took him away. I watched from the staircase where he used to shove me, where I used to fall and pretend it didn't hurt. He looked up at me then. His eyes didn't plead. They blamed, as if I'd stolen something that was his by right. Maybe I had. The trial came months later. Mom refused to speak to me, said I'd destroyed the family. But I stayed composed. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. The prosecution didn't need emotion. They had evidence, medical reports, photos, testimonies. Even my old school nurse came forward, said she'd suspected something for years. The defense tried to paint me as unstable. Jealous sibling, they said, attention seeker. But the jury saw through it. They saw the quiet endurance in my voice, the years of restraint behind every word. When the verdict came, guilty, my mother gasped like she'd been stabbed. My brother didn't move. He just stared at me, blank, as if trying to understand how the victim became the weapon. But revenge wasn't loud for me. It wasn't about the handcuffs or the sentence. It was about watching the truth finally exist in the open air, where it could breathe. It was about walking into that house again, not as the broken one, but as the survivor. I didn't tell them everything, though. I didn't mention how I'd recorded that night months before it happened. How I'd kept every voicemail, every apology, every text where Mom begged me to stay quiet. When I handed that drive to the prosecutor, I knew it was over. Not just for him, for her too. Because silence wasn't my cage anymore. It was my weapon. Mom lost her job after the verdict. Turns out covering up abuse doesn't sit well in the corporate world. The community turned on her. The whispers she used to control now tore her apart. She still calls sometimes, leaves voicemails. "We can fix this, sweetheart. Family forgives." I never call back. Some fractures don't heal. They just harden into armor. The doctor still checks in sometimes. She doesn't ask how I'm feeling. She knows better. Instead, she just says, "You did the right thing." I nod, because I did. He has no future now, at least not the one Mom protected. And me? For the first time, I have one. Every breath still aches, a reminder of the night that changed everything. But when I inhale now, it's not pain I feel, it's freedom.